In this episode, we discuss whether Satan is an actual being, something different, or both. We then discuss how powerful he might be and try to figure out where he came from. That time frame led us into an interesting conversation on the Garden of Eden as well. This topic made us realize we all had some long-held assumptions about Satan and forced us to look deeper at those. Enjoy! You're listening to Campfire Theology, where we explore topics you usually wouldn't discuss in church. So gather around with us, because we believe the conversation itself is holy.
So I would say, my question would be,
he was also, sorry to cut you off, go ahead.
wow, douche.
That's the alpha male.
What a real douche.
Yeah, that's the alpha male. What are you doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
cower down.
I'll allow you.
We're down.
So would you consider anything that has power outside of our realm and lives outside of our realm as a god? Like, how do you define God? How do you define, like obviously within Christianity, we
Omnipotent.
view a God,
Right.
like we believe in one God,
Mhm.
and that's a whole separate conversation. But
Mm.
if there are aliens or beings that exist outside of us, outside of our reality,
Mhm.
could they be considered gods because they have that much power?
Well, wouldn't that be paganism?
Yeah, but
Right.
like I would say no. That doesn't make them all powerful.
Not like capital G God, but how about like lowercase g, sort of like, like pagan gods in a what do they call that? Like a group of I can't think of the name for it. A pantheon. That's what it is. So like Zeus and Hera and Apollos and all those ones, sort of like the lowercase g. And I know Lewis makes an argument about how sort of those point toward that kind of idea.
Right.
Mythological figures could even be sort of not aliens, but it could be sort of angels. And that's sort of the personification of them that people are worshiping angels instead of worshiping God, or worshiping demons instead of worshiping God.
So like idolizing
I could see that.
aliens, if you will.
I would bet that. Like, let's say that Satan wanted to deceive people. I mean, that seems like an easy way for him to do that.
Create like other gods, you mean?
Like a miraculous,
Like Achilles in the Greek word.
absolutely. Or like having some kind of miraculous incident that takes place that seems otherworldly.
Right. So that's kind of my question then is, so Satan has, he has more power than we have, obviously. If we don't know the extent
Does he?
of, okay, fair enough.
I think he does. That's
Yeah.
why I do that.
Wow, pretty vain.
Yeah. You're as powerful as Satan.
Wow.
Well, okay, so that's a fair question though. Are we more powerful than Satan? If we can
I mean, I
say
say
no to him,
like he is the master deceiver, right? The master of lies.
right?
So in some ways, I feel like we are more powerful than he is, because of our ability to like tap into God.
In that capacity, for sure.
Right. Right.
Where I feel like God can slaughter Satan at the snap of a finger, right?
Right.
If he so
Like
chooses.
Thor.
Yeah.
Not Thor. Thanos.
Thanos, yeah.
Thor.
I had a Thor throat one time.
Okay, Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson.
Don't offend
Thor.
us.
Final.
Right. But yeah, so one of the things about Satan is that word in Hebrew, Satan, actually just means enemy. It's not written like a proper noun name.
Okay.
It's just sort of like
Not
a
specific.
no. It's not really a specific like personality or a specific being.
Being even.
Yeah. So like it to me, it's always interesting how they personify him. Like in the book of Job, for example, Satan walks up to God and they have this conversation, or the serpent in Genesis, or like when Jesus is tempted in the desert, and we have this. I don't know. I guess we're under the assumption that it's a specific person or specific being that's doing all these things throughout the history of the Bible. But I don't know that the Bible really says that.
That's an interesting.
Right.
So you're saying that.
That's a good question.
Agreed. Totally agree.
Is Satan an individual being, or is he just all opposition to goodness?
I mean, I think in certain stories, like Jesus's temptation in the desert, I think he has to be a specific person. Don't you think?
Can he manifest himself into a specific being and then but exists outside of a being? He's multiple,
right? And I mean, in the book of Revelation, they talk about that ancient serpent that is the devil,
right?
So specifically, a specific
Well, the
specifically a specific being.
The Bible even says it. Did it like crush him with his heel and it actually wounded him, weakened him?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he's like a specific entity at that point.
Yeah, in Genesis.
Yeah, or is that metaphorical though?
Sure.
For like stomping out evil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never took it that. My opinion, he's a specific being.
I think
because he's a fallen angel, right? He was an actual angel. He was a specific.
Yep.
True. You know, he was a specific person.
Where do you get that
being?
Damn.
The fallen angel bit. Is that just like
what do you mean?
Where in the Bible is that?
Ooh, so that means you don't. Okay, I know what you mean by that.
Like I don't think that there is, unless it's sort of an extrapolation from Revelation. You know, that talks about how he fell from heaven.
I remember.
So if it said he fell from heaven, how's that not a fallen angel?
So
it doesn't say biblically that it does it?
I mean, in Revelation, it talks about how he was cast down from heaven.
Yeah,
but like, it doesn't talk. It's very difficult to pin down like the timeline there, and it's not clear.
I remember always hearing and thinking that as a child, and then looking it up and like realizing that it's not nearly as explicit as I thought it was, as I was made to believe.
Yeah, I agree with
as a kid as to what Satan was. Like I heard of Satan being the fallen angel who fell and basically turned into the worst possible guy, and
I think
had secondary power up to God. Other than that, he was as powerful, more powerful than anybody else other than God.
Mm-hmm.
And
so I think in Luke they talk about that. Let me see if I can find it.
And yeah, I don't that kind of rocked me.
Yeah, I guess everything I read or heard that was pretty black and white, I thought. So I'm surprised you guys.
It's racist.
No, I said both.
Oh man.
So Luke 10:18, he replied, this is Jesus talking now, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven.
Yeah, that's more explicit. That's more explicit. Yeah, that's more explicit than what I remember.
Back to your point, why is that not a fallen angel?
So I mean, like there isn't sort of the mythology really there, like any of the specific things where like, oh, he wanted to be perfect and and God cast him out or things like that. I think a lot of those ideas are brought to us later by sort of like like Western literature or those kinds of those ideas.
Really. Read that again though. Didn't it just say he was either cast out or that he fell from heaven?
Yeah, I saw Satan fall.
I mean, it's like that is the exact verbiage. I don't. All right. I don't.
Yeah.
To me, that's clear, but that's my interpretation of it.
I guess.
There's a verse section in Ezekiel 28 that I found that is talks a little bit about this too as analogy for for Satan.
Do you want to give you a little more context at Luke?
Sure.
So this is when Jesus sends out the 72. He sends out 72 people ahead, and he says, "Go ahead. Don't take any weapons or purse or anything. Just take what's on you.
Right.
Go to all the towns, heal, do miracles, all that stuff."
Mhm.
Right. And then the 72 returned with joy and said, "Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name." And he replied, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you."
Yeah.
Wait.
However-
That part though. Sorry, keep going.
Go ahead. Yeah.
What? Read the verse one more time.
10:17. The 72 returned with joy and said, "Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name." And Jesus replied, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. I have given..."
Okay, so that right there. So is he saying that Satan actually fell from heaven, or is he using a metaphor or analogy of lightning from heaven? That he saw Satan fall like a fallen soldier, as opposed to him literally falling from heaven to earth. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I saw him fall like lightning from heaven. Is he saying like lightning that you see come down from the clouds? Or is it that he is like just fell over like somebody who's defeated?
But didn't it say
Right.
fall from heaven, not fall like lightning from heaven?
I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven.
Right. And it doesn't say
But
specifically.
it doesn't.
that-
When it says like lightning from heaven, does that mean he saw him fall rapidly?
Right.
Like,
That's
hey,
what-
I saw his morality was corrupt, and as a result, he fell like a rock or
Right.
like lightning from heaven. Immediately cast out from heaven. Maybe that's what he means.
It says nothing about him being an angel right there.
Agreed.
There are other verses. I gotta find those. I gotta think about those.
Yeah, just the idea that, so he fell from heaven, so he tried to be God in that sense. There's this verse from Ezekiel 28 that I found. It's technically talking about a specific king in the Old Testament, but a lot of people say that this is about Satan. It says, Ezekiel 28:12, "Son of man, take up a lament concerning the king of Tyre," which was one of the nations that Israel consistently fought against, and say to him, "This is what the Lord God says. You were the seal of perfection." This is where they think it starts talking about in like a metaphor for Satan. "You were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom, perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone adorned you: carnelian, chrysolite, emerald, topaz, onyx, jasper, and a bunch of other ones. Your settings and mountings were made of gold, and on the day that you were created, they were prepared. You were anointed as a guardian cherub. For so I adorned you, I had ordained you. You were on the holy mount of God, and you walked among the fiery stones. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created till wickedness was found in you. Through your widespread trade, you were filled with violence. You sinned. So I drove you in disgrace from the mount of God. I expelled you, guardian cherub, from among the fiery stones. So I threw you to the earth." In verse 17, "Your heart became proud."
Where is this?
But this is Ezekiel 28:12 through 18.
Okay.
Verse 17 says, "Your heart became proud on account of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom because of your splendor. So I threw you to earth. I made a spectacle of you before kings." And there's a lot of stuff about like being in fire and ashes and all sorts of things like that. So
let me read. Can I read a little bit more to you?
yeah,
From Isaiah 14, chapter 12. "How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn." I feel like that's interesting. Son of the dawn being darkness, right?
right, yes. Mhm.
Yep. "You have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God," which is consistent with Satan, right? His goal.
Mm-hmm.
"I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount Zaphon. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. But you are brought down to the realm of the dead and the depths of the pit."
So I mean, as I think about it, like if there are demons, which I think we all agree there are,
I think
it
so. Yeah.
feels like there would have to be a leader. It's hard for me to imagine just like this.
Call the father of lies, father of deception. That kind of indicates leadership role. Like,
Sure.
Right.
Single being.
But what would, if there's not a leader of demons, what would it be? Just like a meritocracy of demons who all work together and they're all on the same page. Like, it would seem to me that if they're all evil, they would backstab each other and try to get to the top to be the most powerful demon. I think of like Lord of the Rings, the orcs, like how quickly they turn their backs on each other. The scene where they don't have meat.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, and then they just start eating the orc. It's like even the worst, like demons, need someone to lead them as well.
Right. To whip them into shape or what have you.
Right.
Right.
So I that lends me, just logically following it, it seems like Satan would have to be the leader of all the demons. Conversely, I view God as the leader of all the angels.
Right.
You know, like they are his workers.
Also, just as I mentioned before, in Ezekiel 28, it's specifically against the king of Tyre, which was a specific nation that was around. What Will just read from,
He didn't have a lot of energy, right?
What's that?
The king of Tyre.
You can edit that out. He could
I'll amplify it.
He could roll with the best of them, though, I tell you.
Heyo.
This says, what Will just read was, you'll take up this taunt against the king of Babylon. So if we're taking Isaiah's words in sort of the political way that he meant in that day and age, it's specific to a king that was an enemy to Israel at that time. So those words were meant for a specific human being, not necessarily a metaphor for Satan, even if, maybe there's some theologian that thinks that it was a metaphor for Satan. I think a lot of it is just a metaphor for the human beings in general, that we try to be our own gods and we try to create things in our image, and that we have the arrogance to not follow God, but follow sort of ourselves. That's kind of what I see as humanity, just in general, that maybe that does come from Satan's ideas, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe we, in the image of God, just want to create ourselves as God. So I don't know that it's clear to me.
Agreed. So if he wasn't an angel, though, if Satan wasn't an angel, what else would he have been? If he was in heaven, and I've always been under the impression he was, in my mind, I always viewed it as he was like tried to overtake God.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, basically God went alpha male or female.
For our female look.
On it.
shout out to Ashley Schluckbeer.
And basically like knocked him down a whole bunch of pegs and was just like, forget it, you're out. Like, I can't trust you. You've broken trust with me, and therefore you're out of here.
Right.
I was wondering if Will could make any more noise if it was possible. Do you think?
Sorry, I didn't realize you were the noise police.
Yeah.
So I do think when you're talking about Babylon,
Yeah.
how you're right, it's specifically referencing to Babylon.
Right. But
in Revelation, Babylon is kind of symbolic of
the
enemies
system.
the enemies of God.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So,
but Isaiah was at least I believe he was a real historical person. He actually existed and wrote these things. So, it's very typical of biblical text to have sort of the immediate meaning of something, and then also like the prophetic meaning of something.
Sure.
Like, this is what it meant to, like, this is what Jesus' sermon meant to the people who were listening that day. and this is what it means to us now,
Sure.
kind of thing, or prophecies are like that as well.
Right.
I think of Isaiah's prophecies are as primarily forward facing.
Think so.
I don't know that. That's my. I don't keep using the word interpretation, but that's kind of how I understand the majority of his prophecy. Specifically, like how he prophesies about the Messiah and specifics about who the Messiah is and when they'll be and what town they'll be from and all of that stuff. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, but who would he be? I think that's a good question. If Satan wasn't an angel. Another good question that I don't think I have an answer for is, if sin entered the universe through humans, where did Satan learn how to go against the will of God? You know what I mean? If sinning is going against the will of God,
Right.
and he was tempting them to do it, he kind of
he was right. So we look at the original sin as Adam and Eve, but really there was an original sinner prior to Adam and Eve,
right?
Which would be Satan, right?
But are angels made in the image of God? That's one of my questions that I have, is like, are they beings who are made in the image of God with sort of like the deciding factor that we can, the free will that we have?
Right.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that they could do anything outside of what their prescribed duties are, or whatever, their prescribed personality or what have you.
Okay, here's, I think, maybe the thing that we're looking at. So in Revelations talks
louder butt liquor.
Louder butt liquor.
And then there was war in heaven. Lower. This is Revelations 12:7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. Dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. That great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. Right. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. I think that's the concept, the archangel.
Yeah.
Or the
archangel.
Archangel, sorry.
Arch. That's McDonald's. That's the McDonald's angel. The archangel.
Archangel, sorry.
That's the hamburglar.
Hamburglar.
Well, that's where, I would say that's probably the most specific. He was hurled to the earth and his angels with him.
Right.
So that's where the idea to me always came of
a fallen angel.
A fallen angel and trying to overtake God. Yeah. But again, that had, like, going back to your point though, that had to have taken place prior to the creation of Earth and or the universe.
Exactly. So what's he talking about in Revelation? Because there's we just got through a study of this Bible app plan that was Revelation, and it made me realize that it really does stick to a chronology. Like, there was this thing happened, then that thing happened, then that thing happened, then this thing happened. So like, it seems like it's all sort of set right before the world ends.
Right.
And so like, if that's the case, then this thing that Will just talked about it wouldn't have happened yet.
Or wouldn't have happened back at the time of creation, you mean? It would have happened more at the end times.
Correct. Yeah, it would be something John was seeing in his revelation that he's trying to tell us about. Is significant to the end times, not like before the beginning of the earth, this thing happened, which I think we have that idea. I think it's from sort of like the Western literature idea that we think of, like what Will was saying earlier, like we associate red with the devil, and it's almost just like art is impacting the way that we think of things. So like Paradise Lost is a very popular book.
There's art imitate life, right?
Right. Yeah. So does the way that we think about Satan really, or angels or aliens or whatever, like, is that really biblical? Or can we really pick it out? That was one of my questions here from scripture, specifically to Ezekiel, how wild looking these angels are. And Revelation 2, how much of that language is symbolic and how much of that language is trying to accurately describe what they physically look like.
Right. David, we haven't heard from you in a while. What are you thinking?
I'm just listening, thinking.
I know. What do you think? What are you thinking? I don't know. I was just thinking.
Well, just because I don't know. I mean, I have my opinions. And it's
They
not-
share them then.
Yep.
I did already. I mean, it's not.
Well, screw you.
No, but what I'm saying, there's no point in arguing of like.
The discussion itself is whole. Don't you
Exactly.
remember-
Come on.
But I'm
Don't
saying
you remember our tag?
there's no
line?
point in arguing about like if I say, oh well, to me it's a fallen angel. Like that's
Okay.
in my
that's
mind. That's what
fine.
it is. And if you guys say, well, it could be this, could it, like it
So
could
what's
be,
really-
I don't have proof. What am I gonna? I mean, I can't argue that.
So I think what's
it's just
really
one person's opinion versus another.
what's really interesting to me is that we were all under the impression that he was a fallen angel,
Right.
and yet we were all struggling. Like when you're like, "Where's that written?" It's like, good question. I don't know that I've ever like read and like I can't think. Oh, I know right where that's at. Like I had to Google like where does it say that?
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. That alone, the fact that we all like assume to have known the same thing,
Yeah.
but not really sure how we got there.
Exactly.
And now that I've read some of this and it's kind of jogging my memory a little bit, and I'm learning a little bit on the fly, I think that's a good interpretation. I still think it's fallen angel, right? That's still how I interpret that.
I would too.
But yeah, I think
Or
it's
some sort of-
probably maybe more up for interpretation than I maybe thought it was.
Sure.
Sort of.
Well, a fallen angel, a fallen being, a fallen servant of God, basically. I believe. I mean, he was in heaven. He's not. To me, you're not in heaven if you're not a servant of God,
Sure.
which I just equate with angels, right?
So, but then that,
Yeah.
So my question then from there would go was if this, I view it as this happened prior to the earth being created, to the creation of Adam and Eve.
But it could
So-
have, right? Didn't it say he was cast down to earth? I
Yep.
thought that verse said he
True.
was cast
That
to
is,
earth.
yeah.
Can't say
True.
earth wasn't created yet. So, and that's another thing I was thinking about. We kind of discussed this in previous meetings of,
Mm-hmm.
or at least C.S. Lewis talked about it.
Mhm.
We always look at time as a very specific timeline in our minds.
Yeah, linear.
Where
Yeah.
they said like to God that time is irrelevant. So if you take time out of the equation, what we don't understand or how it could happen, right? Like an author writing the book, like C.S. Lewis said, of where you could place the characters and then step away from it and come back, and in their moment, it's the exact same timeline, but in his, it's not. So I think it's almost a moot point in order to say, oh no, there's no way that could happen. How do we know that? Because the Bible, or at least I thought the Bible said it or something about time is irrelevant to God, basically.
Well, yeah.
Right.
And there's
So
that
then-
verse that says, one day is
So it's kind of like
There is one day in your course.
I love that fun.
That's a
Me too.
great song.
it is a good song.
All
We should
the-
do a singing.
We should all sing together, all on three. Better is one day.
No thanks.
It was- all the best worship songs were around when
When we were
Yeah.
children.
Well, we were kids.
yeah,
Chris Tomlin made 98% of them.
I know he did.
Do you think we could dump Paul in on the singing? Miracle Paul.
Oh yeah, that would be great. He's got
Campers. So what I was going to say is for the time there, so because I've always thought too, then when God created Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, if death hadn't been brought into the world, into earth, until Eve ate the apple and introduced sin to earth,
Mhm.
then they theoretically could have lived millions of years. They could have been
Mhm.
an infinite amount of time
Yeah, right.
prior to that. So could Earth then have been,
Millions of years old.
or created? Could there have been a parallel realms where heaven had all the creatures and Earth also had the creatures? And then God said, I needed a separate space
Mhm.
to rid heaven of Satan, because this is a holy and perfect place, and Satan is no longer worthy of being here. Therefore, he sent him to earth and banished him here effectively.
Mhm.
So I always thought God created Earth 7 days. It was perfect. It was good. He created Adam and Eve, put them in the Garden of Eden. Everything was right in the world. Satan basically was battling for superiority with God God flung him down to earth.
Mhm.
And that was probably the origination of the serpent and the temptation and some of the evil that we start to see creep in. Man falls as a result,
Mhm.
and then the rest kind of falls into
Mhm.
place. That's from a timeline. That's how I
Think.
That's how I
Right,
reckon
right.
all of that.
Right.
And then so like all this happens. It talks about the big red dragon who is waiting for the woman to give birth, kind of foreshadowing. And the dragon's waiting basically at the foot of the woman, waiting for her to give birth to the king who will rule all of earth with an iron scepter, talking about Jesus.
Jesus.
But God swoops the baby up and takes it to heaven before the dragon's able to eat it, kind of symbolizing the Jesus, resurrection a little bit, at least in my mind.
Where is this?
Revelation 12.
Okay. Yeah.
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 Wow.
Yeah. I would
I
agree.
thought that, and then in there, and then it's still talking about, that's when it goes into talking about the war going on in heaven with Michael, the
Mhm.
the archangel.
Archangel. I think it's Angle. The Archangel.
The archangel.
Craven a joke.
I think I put the emphasis on the wrong spot.
The emphasis. I think that's Simpsons.
But yeah, I mean, it clearly talks several times about how the dragon was hurled to earth and he pursued the woman and the male child, talking about Jesus.
Right.
Right. So then, but even within that, I get curious and I think, okay, so how long was Satan on earth prior to
Mhm.
The fall
yeah,
of man.
right? Like, did Adam and Eve live for hundreds of thousands of years resisting Satan and never giving in? In my mind, in the way the way we depict it, like in pictures, is it looks like two middle-aged people,
Right.
and it feels like, in my head, I think, they grew up from kids and then became adults, and when they're in their early adults, they're like 25 or 30, and she gave into it,
Right.
and that's when she gave up. But
yeah, who knows?
exactly, right? Like,
Fair. But
It's all speculation, really.
But it always says, and again, this could be translation or anything. I think all of us picture them being adults, right? Too, because it says God created man and woman. It doesn't say boy and girl, or it's always
right.
Basically, I think
it kind of implies like adulthood.
Pictures it being like God made a baby and a baby just kind of sat there.
Right.
tiny baby infant Jesus, all 9 pounds, 6 ounces, eating apples from the trees.
Golden fleece.
Take a picture of
Going to please diapers.
Right. The Ricky Bobby baby.
Ricky Bobby, baby.
I feel like it is like that's how I always pictured it too. But it goes to Will's point about preconceived notions within the Bible. Like, how much do you like when I read the Adam and Eve story? I think, okay, God made him into a fully adult man. Like at least in his 20s.
Right. Created him.
Yeah.
Like that. Like he didn't go through. Yeah, because I thought of that too, because it's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Yeah, if Adam was born as a baby, well, then who took care of him? And how did he grow as a child if he couldn't breastfeed from his mother?
Right.
Because if he had to breastfeed from his mother, then, well, where did the mom come from? And at some point, he would have had to create a being that was middle-aged or old enough to self-sustain themselves,
right,
and then start the process of having a baby. That